What's up, YouTube? Ace from Recover here. This is what I learned with Deity Week 2. I'm going to be going over some builds here, going around towers, dungeons, endless, and maybe some extra surprises along the way. So let's get to it. You can see here I have Blades of Finesse on Deity Ursa and Sequencer on Deity Aura. But first things first, I want to go over just a general view of what are some good amities to get. I'm not going to show the amities. I'm just going to have the amity page over while I show that. Overall, buff duration or recovery amities are going to be good because that means that your temporary attack or temporary magic, depending on if you're Aura or Ursa or Aura, will last longer. The next one will be hybrid amities or hybrid damage. With Swan Song being released, Swan Song already has the hybrid passive built into the weapon, which is fantastic. So you can use the hybrid damage. And then if you have the luxury of getting a legendary one, or some good alternatives to it, is getting a missing health for Deity Ursa, or a mana for Aura, or mana and health for both of them as well. So you can do hard mode dungeons or challenge yourself and not have to worry about constantly spamming potions in order to help you out. Now, I will recommend you can try out using the new stuff that we have here, the Baguette de Clarinet, the pair with the Steadfast passive. If you want to try and get your debuffs to fade faster, if you get paralyzed, stunned, frozen, stuff like that. But overall, I think it's a cool addition, but maybe not required. I just got 2 of them just because they're cool, and I got them. And then last but not least, for the amities, I would say having a crit would be great, and also having a ward turn amity as well for towers. So let's get into some tower builds first. I'm going to go over Deity Aura. For Deity Aura, I will mainly be using Disciple of Finesse. This is a shell of a build that I was using. I'm using the Lioness Crown for the Foresight and for the tanky stats. Swan Song because Swan Song. Risen Aura leggings for the starting ward turn, and then a Rift Rogue for the crits. And I would have this filled up with crit adornments as well, but I'm currently using those for something else. The amity that I have is a crit with Bestial Bond, so I can get more tower shards when I'm using the Replica Themis with me. The Trevelyan Charms to help me get more damage. Going over for the spells. See here I have Aura Vesta as my first spell to help out when I'm not using Swan Song. Transference, great Word of Ordinite, and then the some different seals. And Verse. Verse can hit really hard as well. So this is what I overall use for the Deity Aura for towers. Now for Deity Ursa, we got a couple different builds for this one. Mainly using the Blades of Finesse. One of them is going to be the only Chain Shield. Going with the classic. I personally like using the Hyperion gear because when you have 2 of them, that means you have 2 starting ward turns, and you recover 2% ward per turn on top of the Prometheus in my hybrid X that I have. And I have some Selene hands in there for hybrid damage. I personally recommend using the Ymir Vither Charm because the Petrify is a killer in towers from the Gargoyle pack, and plus stun is not very fun either, or paralyzed. I use a buff duration with Bestial Bond 1, so my buffs can last longer once I get them, by taking out stuff with the Ursa passive. Of course, we have our Spike Grade Shield to do this, for more Chain Shield damage or Spike Shield, and then Carl's Ring for big stats. And of course, I can't forget the Wind Tamer boots for the extra foresights in order to take and help out. So for the spells for this one, I use this Chain Shield, Nutra Minialis. I use Borealis. I'm not really using Chinalis right now, but it's in there just because it was in my old build. Perfect Shot is fantastic, and Stun Dart as well, very important. And of course, you can't forget the Word of Ordinite. So that is a tower build part 1 for Deity Ursa. The second one is going to be a Gendering build. This is used for Gendering. Same amity for the Deity Aura build with the 40% crits with the Beast on 1. Now, I have a new addition here, which is going to be the Wind Tamer gear. I reload the Wind Tamer for the Swashbuckler because it gives you low defense, and it gives you foresight, and it gives you a good amount of ward too. And I'm using the Tarnished King's Crown for the helmet to give me foresight and have decent amount of ward as well, with some HP and some other cool stats. Now, Envy is an arcane damage spell, has a 5% crit chance. So you can see here, with this all put together, I have a 95% crit chance, or a little bit more sometimes, depending on the build, and I'll always replace this for another Pumpkinless once I get the Foresight buff and or the crit buff. Now for the spells for this one, I have very similar to the other Aura spells, but I'm using the strike spells for these, and I'm using the Nutra Borealis most of the time if I'm in danger. Next, we're going to go over some dungeon builds. So we're going to go from the old school and we're going to go to new school. So old school, we're going to go with the tail build. Tail sweep. So I'm using the tails for the luck and for the drop rates. I'm using the double guitar combination, or the double little playable instruments for funsies because of their hybrid stats. Beastfell chests, don't worry about these adornments. They're in a different build for that. One Tamer shoes and the Omega Olympia for the attack and resistance temporary that you get with the dex. And the Amity is a missing health with hybrid. So it could be red line with that. Next, we're going to go with an Aerostorm build here. Aerostorm, we're using a missing health with maximum mana per turn, with Mercury's Bow, Presence for Arc Alchemy. You can use Presence or Tail, or use both of them if you want to. So very similar gear to the other one, but I'm using more Foresight because I'll be carrying dungeons sometimes with this. Now I'm fancy and I have a broken Wind Tamer shoes right here. You don't need to have a broken one. Upgraded the Godforge. If you don't want to, you can get like maybe 3 or 5 if you're going full Blades of Finesse, just to get a couple of slots in there, but I decided to full send it. Now the skills for this one is going to be using Nutra Minialis a lot. I have Guarding Strikes get ward turns, Elemental Strikes to cover the weaknesses if there's stuff for normal dungeons, and that's pretty much it for here. For the sweep build, I'm going to show you what I use for the spells there. You'll see the how it's built out because sweep is normally going to be there. But for sweep, we have this. Double Edge, Quad Edge to kind of micromanage the health. Guarding Strikes still have the Nutra Minialis. Amazing spell. People that don't know what Nutra Minialis does, it makes your single target spells hit or have the chance to hit everyone, but they do 50% less damage. But that's, you know, a price to pay. So here are the spells that I use here. So next we are going to go to the Endless build. So I'm going to go with this one I've been working on. I showed it first, and it's this one right here. It's basically a full crit build. I have the Arisen Rift helmets, so I can take and run berserks without taking too much damage for the self damage reductions by 75% with that cool accuracy as well. And then I'm running Oracle with this, with a hybrid with missing HP and a buff duration or a crit one, depending on whatever you have, you can use for those. And I'm using the guitar with the hybrid, not with the crit, because you're going to get more overall with that. Then going with the Prometheus hands for that, and the double cross rings just for the raw stats, and the Autumnal Crest shield because it's got a lot of defense and resistance. So that's what I use when I was testing out some deep endless for the Deity Ursa. But for the most part, if I'm farming for XP or for Orns, I'm going to use Deity Aura here. And for here, I'm going to be using the seal first, or the elemental seals. 3 mountainous acorns get mana regeneration, 25% accessory amity, normally oracle, so I have 2 of those here. Fancy Band the Gods, questing staffs, 75% crit rate here, before Wormsong, so with Wormsong you're at 95%. The spells I use here are Viper Sealed, A lot of the other seals as well, but Viper Seal is first because I use that one a lot. I have Ultima and Ultima 2 for more damage. You can pretty much skip using the Gate of Kara, Gate of Ear, and Sinatra because they will nuke one stat and give you increase in the other one or reduce your resistance here. Versus a sleeper spell too, I like using that one. So that's what I use for the seal one. Now we go over to the Ultima, which is when I start not be able to one-shot things with the seal. I swap over to the Sequencer and I do Quick Cast Ultima. So this has 55% crit in the gear. So similar gear, similar amity here for the spells that I use for this. We're going to go with, bam, you guessed it, Ultima first. Still got some other strikes, Sands Everywhere for fun blind stuff. I have the Borealis, Immaterialis, and 2000 Seals. 2000 Seals is just for funsies, kind of thing that I use it occasionally when I'm trying to just charge up my spells in the beginning, but I mainly use these two for the most part. Help me out. And same thing applies, don't really care about these gates right here, because you already have your buffs when you were preparing with that already. Now for the dungeons for Deity Aura, because I forgot to cover that when I was doing Ursa, we're going to go for some old school and then some new school dungeon builds for this. So old school, without Anguish, just full speed running it, I would use this right here. So very similar to the other one. Just a different Olympia hood, and I'm using the Fallen Fridge's Charm in order to get that extra pet action right there, combined with the boots. I'm using the Risen Fey Crow Song with the Ashen Ruby to have the healing, and then the Amity is going to be healing with buff duration, with the Bestial Bond, or I'll do buff duration with a chance to heal off a damage dealt. Now the spells, when you're using Mage Dance is going to be right there, and then I use some of the other similar Apex spells and abilities as well. They'll help me out along the way. Now if you don't want to be super squishy, you can use the Gate of Third instead, or Thrud. Gate of Thrud, so this gives you 25% attack and magic at the cost of 25% of your defense or resistance, instead of taking away 90% of your defense to give you 50% increase to your magic, or attack with 90% resistance for the gunner alternative. Now if you wanted to try and push Anguish, I'd recommend going with the next one underneath this one, which is the Goldeen Wannabe, as I called it, where you're using a Fallen Sky Leggings that gives you one starting ward turn. This, which gives you, this one gives you one ward turn every turn, and this gives you one starting ward turn with 1% ward regeneration per turn. And then this Chimera Staccato gives you the chance to get the temporary defense and resistance up, so you can make yourself very tanky. And I'm using the Beastfeld Garb for the Berserk, and you can change out the adornments for Jewels of Creation. I'm mainly just using that in one of my Swan Song builds for now. But similar skills to the other one, I like using Bolt 4. I think I have in the other build, but it's similar to Perfect Shot. It doesn't crit, but it also doesn't miss. So it's good if you do a Mage Dance and there's that pesky Mortarlord or that Gilgamesh or Heretic or any other second chancer, you can just pop them with the Bolt 4 to help them take them out. So that is an overview of what I use for the dungeons right there. Thank you, Most OP Wave Vessel, for the invites. Much appreciated for that. Now, for rating, I use a Sequencer Quick Cast Ultima build for this one. Helmet is great because it gives you crit rate and it gives you magic. The chest is great because it gives your pet the chance to use the Greater Meditation, which is the temporary magic up 3. And then the foot pads of Dynasty are amazing because it gives you the Gods of Ru, which is the Divide Channel, but instead of taking 3 turns, it goes to 2 turns, and then with Sequencer, it's 1 turn for that. Now, going back over to the D Ursa, for the raids, I still like using the Blades of Finesse, and I use the Ren Daggers. So this is the gear that I use. Coven's Dark Armor is a reskin for the Pumpkin on the Skier, so you get that extra 2-handed damage bonus with that. All crit adornments in the Sparkling Celestial Scythe. And here are the spells that I use. Let me get there real quick for this. So Elementalist is cool to have in case you find something that's immune or resistant to your faction elements. So I'll show that for a little bit longer. And I believe that is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. So that's a kind of overview of some different builds that I use for different dungeons. If you have any questions about any of the guilds that or any of the builds that I post or that I have shared here with you today, you can please write it down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and ideas on that. I'll be going over some examples in the week 3 and what I learned with Deity, or maybe cover some other stuff that I may have forgot here. Let me know if you think that I missed something down below in the comments. But thank you everybody for watching. I really do appreciate everyone's support. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can check me out on Twitch as well. Same name on Twitch over there. But have a great day / night, everyone, and I'll catch y'all in the next video or live on stream. Talk to y'all soon. Peace, everyone.